Anyone who says that we don't test because we're too small,
Yeah, not a good
no,
reason.
no.
Yeah.
It's a bit like saying, well, we haven't had like hygiene tests in our restaurant because we're only a small mom and pop business. Like, no, think about that.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
would you eat there?
No, and it wouldn't fly and it wouldn't fly with, legal standards either. Together, an industry disruptor
And renowned veterinarian discuss and debate established norms and new ideas in the pet world.
This is Challenging Pet Health. Welcome to Challenging Pet Health. I'm Dr. Katie.
I'm Clayton, and this is the premiere episode of our new podcast, which is about all things pet health.
And I am so excited to be doing this podcast together. Of course, we both know that there are other podcasts out there that offer lots of great information and resources for people, highlighting veterinarians and other industry professionals.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's some great podcasts out there, like Pet Business Disruptors. My podcast, by the way.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. But I really think the two of us have something unique to bring to the table. And, we're going to have a lot of cutting edge and unique conversations that are really going to bring a lot of new information and insights for everyone.
And look, between us, we've got like more than 7 decades within the pet industry, even though we both look like we're at maximum 30 each. And look, I think we can talk about things from a very deep knowledge base and really, really pull together my industry experience and your veterinary experience to give people a much more rounded picture of what's going on with their pet's health.
Despite my younger appearance, I have more than 30 years of veterinary clinical experience, 20 years of that being as a specialty veterinarian, holistic, integrative, and functional medicine.
Holistic, isn't that woo-woo stuff?
Well, not really, although we affectionately refer to ourselves as woo-woo on occasion, but holistic really means whole body approach. And so the tools that we utilize, of course, tend to be nutritional, basis, food as medicine, herbal therapies, homeopathy, etc., as opposed to conventional medicine, which is typically focusing specifically on symptoms. I focus on functional medicine. We're looking at the body as a whole integrated functioning system that was designed with innate brilliance to be healthy, to stay in balance, to work in a balanced system. But truly, I am integrative in that in my approach in supporting pet health, I combine regular conventional medicine strategies, surgery, sometimes medicines. I obviously very much put effort into avoiding the overuse of pharmaceuticals, but certain circumstances, of course, we need our conventional medicine. So I am integrative in applying, all of that together to support the body to function in a healthy manner.
And from my end, I grew up in a pet store, and I've been in the industry my whole life. So, from the 1980s to today, I've done everything from working in retail to manufacturing to running a distributor for more than 20 years as an industry consultant, working on marketing. So, literally a holistic pet industry guy is how I see myself.
Very integrative.
But, like I'd like to see the industry as a whole and really question what we're doing as an industry. So I'm very passionate about pushing the industry forward. And I like see me and Dr. Katie getting together as a great way to actually challenge each other as well as challenging health generally.
I love it. And with your background, there is so much that we get to talk about together. There are going to be so many unique conversations and cutting edge information we're going to get into.
Every week, we're going to be looking at different things from marketing to challenging things which have happened in clinic to talking about products to talking about food quality to talking about appropriateness for what you're doing. Every week, we're going to have some new topic on the line, which is going to be looked at from me, the industry lens, and from Katie, the veterinarian lens.
We are going to have lots of great conversations with really giving everyone helpful tips each episode, take home cookies that you're going to be able to start using right away in supporting your pet's health. I am eager to get going. You ready?
Let's get on with it. How's it going, Katie? Yeah, how's it been?
It's fantastic. Things are going really great.
I'm still like somewhere between UK time and like +8 for me at the moment. So I'm
Little bit of jet lag.
yeah, yeah. I tried staying up as late as possible last night, but yeah, it was rough.
Well, we'll have to keep our conversation super fun to keep you awake.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so when you think about bone broth, what do you think of? Obviously, I'm coming at this from quite a different angle to you because I'm a massive critic of a lot of like companies' bone broths, and people have commented on various forums that I like can be quite scathing.
As an integrative veterinarian, I've been telling people for years that my prescription list for your pet will start with food generally. And one of the foods that I love to promote is bone broth. I call it a healing potion. Like bone broth has so much benefits in it and the capacity to heal. And it dates back to obviously ancestral, humans were using this type of food way back to support health, obviously joints. But we know bone broth is on the top of the list of gut healing foods. I'm very into gut health and repairing gut health. And then through the years, so many of my clients have asked me, Dr. Katie, what's your favorite joint supplement? And my typical response is bone broth. I would rather offer a serving of bone broth or even two a day rather than buy most joint supplements in a jar that are in a powdered or a capsuled form. So I've been promoting bone broth for a long time, and I'm excited to talk to you about it because you have such a background in the production of it, the manufacturing of it, and a lot of the sides that I don't know in supporting people to choose good quality bone broth.
One thing people don't realize about bone broth is obviously different meats hold different collagen types. And so I don't know, do you know much about the collagen types?
Not really, although I think that fish, so I'm excited to hear, but like fish is different from
Fish is
the red
different.
meat and the poultry. I
Poultry
know
is different.
poultry bones obviously are different from red meat bones since they're
Yeah.
hollow bones, but I really don't know the data behind that,
Okay.
just a little bit of surface level.
So there's three types of collagen. So you've got type 1, type 2, and type 3 collagen. They all serve different functions, and each of the different products have like different collagen types. Type 1 collagen, strength support.
Okay.
Type 2 is like joint support.
Okay. Because we hear type 2 touted a lot in pet
Yeah.
support, pet health products.
But then type 3 is more like reparative support. So when we talk about gut lining and we
Ah,
talk about regeneration and that sort of stuff,
okay.
that's type 3 collagen.
Okay.
And they're all different. Like, so fish is type 1, is primarily type 1, has
Okay.
some type 2, but it's primarily type 1. And it's also marine collagen is smaller peptides. It gets into the system easier, is
And
more
more bioavailable
more
or easily
bioavailable,
bioavailable.
more
Okay.
easily like processed.
Yep.
So that's marine collagen. So that's your type 1. So it doesn't really have much in the way of type 3.
Okay.
So if
And
you're
type 1, again, is the strengthening those tissues.
yeah.
Type 3 is reparative to the
Yeah,
tissues.
so it doesn't really have type 3.
Okay.
So it's primarily type 1 with some type 2.
Okay.
Poultry is primarily type 2
Okay.
with some type 1 with basically hardly any type 3.
Okay.
And then red meat is primarily type 3 with with quite a bit of type 1, especially beef. Beef is very high in type 1. So depending on what you're recommending it for. So when people say, "Oh, just give bone broth and it does gut and it does joints and it does," well, actually, depends on what you're looking at.
And which one would be the best one for gut?
Oh, type 3.
Okay.
So
Reparative.
venison, lamb, beef, all very, very good for gut. Also very good for strength support. But again, if you're looking for just as a joint product, you should really be
Type
looking
2.
type 2, so
Okay.
poultry bones.
That's why it's so touted. And I've heard like chicken cartilage is or a chicken breastbone and, like a
But
lot of the
but chicken is very much about cartilage support, but again,
Mhm.
it doesn't have like the regenerative gut support, etc., of type
That
3.
the type 3 does.
So normally, most people when they think of bone broth, I'll always go to type 3.
Mhm.
Like, because most people when they think about bone broth, it's a type 3 thing they're looking for rather than like the joint aspect or the sort of the strength
Right.
support.
Which one would be best for skin then? Because there are a lot of humans who drink bone broth for their complexion. All the people in Hollywood, like, oh, look at my skin.
It's
I'm drinking my bone
type
broth
1,
every day.
type 1,
Okay. So
type
that's the strengthening, the collagen that's going to strengthen the skin
yeah.
to not be wrinkly and to be more supple and
So a lot
strong.
of people, it's like it's quite common, like with cats. That's why fish bone broth is really good for cats. Again, because it helps with the skin. It's the best for hydration and the best for,
The type 1,
yeah,
best for hydration.
and like the most easily like
Okay.
absorbed in terms
That
of
makes sense
nutrition.
because hydrating skin makes less wrinkles, stronger skin,
Yeah,
etc. Okay. Great. That's
yeah.
a lot of nuances I did not know.
Yeah, no. So, but again, which is why if you're looking for all of those things,
Mhm.
vary your bone broth.
There you go. I love to preach variety, with
Yeah.
food just because obviously the nutrient comprehensive profile you're getting in is always going to be more expanded and more full if you're adding variety and more metabolic flexibility for the body, etc. But there's a lot of really good detail in why we would do variety for bone broth that I didn't know.
Yeah, and like it's funny because no one talks about it. It's like it's
Mhm.
really interesting because again, like people when they look at like different types of bone broth, it's more about, oh, my dog loves chicken or my dog loves beef. And again, the other thing as well is that when we talk about like the quality of the bone broth is all about the sort of ability to gel.
Yes.
It's type 3 that gels.
Ah,
So if you have a type 1 or type 2, they won't gel in the same way. It might be get a little bit gloopy,
okay.
but they won't gel. Like type 3 will literally turn into like a jelly.
And that's what I was always looking for, assuming that it had a better collagen or gelatin content if it was gelling, but I didn't realize that that's primarily type 3. So that really answers a lot of questions. So essentially, a fish broth
Won't gel.
would be very liquid compared
And
to.
and also the collagen level on a chicken or a fish will be much much lower per, like in terms of grams per meals. I don't know what the hell you would call that in American, because but like,
We do mills. I'm not sure about the first.
yeah, okay. But my big bugbear, I walk around to like American bone broth manufacturers, and a lot of them are very very water heavy. They've been like, and again, like they use hot fill techniques, which basically like waters down the product to create consistency. So you'll get a beef bone broth over here, and you'll put it in the fridge, and you'll tip it, and it will just be water.
So what's the hot fill
So
process?
so
Where does
hot
that
hot
come in?
hot fill processes, and then like we do this a lot. Like when you look at pasteurized products. So if you think about some of the cheaper, and it's not always cheaper, but like the products which are on the supermarket shelf, which are in big cartons, seem very cheap. That process, like then heats the thing up so that when it's then sealed, it like stays shelf stable.
So would a hot fill only apply to a shelf stable product?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
So
it.
and look, a lot of the products which you will see, especially the cheap ones, will be hot fill. Some will use powdered, some will use liquid, but the reality is that a hot fill product always contains an excess of liquid because they have to make it a shelf stable product.
But there are shelf-stable products from the UK or
Yeah.
otherwise that are still good quality and do have high collagen.
Yeah, no, no. Look, there is like high quality pasteurized products, but
Okay,
those are products that have to come straight from the kettle,
okay.
and they are, like I say, and you can tell the difference because if you pick up a red meat bone broth and shake it, it doesn't sound like water. It
Right.
sounds like gloop in there.
Yep,
And again, very easy to tell.
perfect.
As long as there's no weird additives like starches or anything like that, if you put it in the fridge, it will turn into a jelly. And then you're getting something quality. The problem is that in America compared to Europe, we have to declare our collagen levels per
I did
100 mil.
not know that until you had told me recently,
And
which I never even thought of that because nobody that I'm aware of in the United States does that, for human or pet sold bone broth.
so it's like the only way you can tell in the US is like how gelled it gets. And you can only really tell that, let's say, with like meat bone broths, like
Right?
so like dark red meat bone broths. But then you have companies that add things like tapioca starch and stuff like that. So yeah, again, it makes it gel,
Yes.
but without actually making it good.
Right, and tapioca starch should always show up on a label,
Oh
right? An
yeah, sure
ingredient
it does.
label,
No,
but
it
people
does.
don't know to be looking for that, knowing that's a thickener.
Well, the problem is like American ingredients are quite opaque in terms of like percentages.
Mhm,
Like you can have identical ingredient panels and
mhm.
have a very different like quality product.
So what should people look
The
for?
go-to um distinction should be like protein levels,
Okay,
but
which are also listed on the label?
no, they are listed,
Okay,
but What I've noticed a lot of American companies do is they'll add meat into the bone broth, which will artificially heighten the protein levels.
Ah,
So will obscure the amount of bone broth that you've got in there. What you want is you want a bone broth which has got nothing else in it. And like, look, American companies do this a lot. They'll put, oh, this is bone broth with turmeric and kidney and liver and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, if you wanted those things in your bone broth, just buy those things and add it to your bone broth. Don't like put it in there. It's sort of like,
right, because it brings down the concentration of what the
but it,
star of the product
but it
is.
makes it more opaque. It makes it
Mm,
harder to actually look at it and actually discern what you're actually getting for your money.
mhm.
But they all do it. Like
Yeah,
I've noticed it's a very common tactic, and they might give you some great reasons where we all do this because these things are all great for your dog, and I'm sure they are.
right,
And
and
putting
right.
turmeric
You
and
can justify it, but
but
it's nice to know if they are adding some meat, what should the label say? Should it just say,
just
like, if it's a chicken
just
bone
don't.
broth, should it say chicken bones?
It should be three ingredients:
Okay,
water, bones, apple cider vinegar,
vinegar. Mhm.
and that's it.
Okay,
Like that's your ideal product because the apple cider vinegar is just in there and because it draws all the collagen nutrients out of the bones. So
right.
it's just
Simmered for long
yeah,
periods at low
yeah.
temperatures with the apple cider vinegar.
So for me, like the problem with bone broth is because it is so easily diluted, it's really easy for companies to appear better value and like look like they're giving something. But the problem is that the more you dilute it down, the less therapeutic it is.
Right.
So, again, if you've got like a dash of bone broth in a glass of water, it's not that therapeutic, right? But, so I'm kind of the mind that people should do things in as basic a way as possible or self-declare. I mean, personally, my personal preference would be self-declare minimal ingredients, but we are where we are with it. And so for me, like when I look at these bone broths, it should be about like, just trying to pick out who is the most self-declared minimal.
What is the difference between gelatin and collagen?
Gelatin is just something totally different. Like it's
Than
just
collagen.
and like I say, it's got different benefits, and like it should be used differently. So again, like bone broth is about types of collagen and amino
Mhm.
acids, and gelatin it does have like skin benefits, like joint benefits, and
But
that
is
sort of.
gelatin a component of collagen?
No, gelatin is like it like is quite often comes from skin.
Okay.
It's not that gelatin's like a bad thing or a good thing. It's like I think gelatin is on the whole a good thing because it
Mhm.
does have joint support benefits to it, but it's nothing like a bone broth.
Okay.
Bone broth has very distinct amino acid
Mhm.
qualities. It's hydrating. There's like strong nutritional benefits. Gelatin is just another thing. So when
Right, and it
you
does not equal collagen.
no, no, no,
Okay,
no. But it's offering something different.
got it.
It's offering something. So don't pick up like a gelatin product. Think, well, it's kind of like bone broth. It's like it's like fish food is
Right.
kind of like
Close.
it's kind of like looks a bit like chicken food. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
Okay.
It's not. You can't just sort of say, well, it kind of wiggles the same and it's in the same sort of packaging, so that must be the same thing, right?
Okay.
There's lots of good use cases for it, but it's not. It
It's not
shouldn't. It
equivalent.
shouldn't be in the same conversation as bone broth.
Okay. There's a big trend for, pet supplements to have what's called UC2 collagen in it.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing as type 2 or
It's an extraction of it. So it is the same thing, but it's not, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of UC2 is like an extraction of type 2 collagen. And so it's kind of like I think it's taking the molecules of the collagen, which have the cartilage building effect.
Yep, isolating it
Yeah.
and making it like, potentiating it, making it more concentrated, like
Yes.
okay, so
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, and it
Yes.
also makes sense that it's the new thing
Y-
that everyone's touting for joint health because if it's this type 2
Yeah.
that's really good for cartilage and such, I mean, there's a lot of joint damage that that particular tissue is what's being affected, and so helping that repair is gonna be
Yeah.
certainly a asset for a lot of joint problems.
But my personal belief is that when things appear in whole foods rather than being taken out and like
Isolated and
and I
potentiated.
then I think that they have a better overall bioavailability and actual absorbability into the system. So although UC2 is very hot at the moment, I
Mhm.
would rather give a good quality poultry
Well,
bone broth. to my dogs.
Singing my tune, Clayton, singing my tune. That's why, like, everybody says, Dr. Katie, what's your favorite joint supplement? I'm like, bone broth.
Yeah.
Before something in a jar that's powdered, and not to say that UC2 and other things can't have good, benefits, but a quality, which this whole episode is about, a quality serving of bone broth should surpass what you can buy in a jar that's been isolated.
And also the other thing as well is like with a poultry bone broth, you will also have type 1 collagen in there as well, as like not as much as type 2, but again, so you've got like the cartilage support, but then you also have the strength support as well, which will work alongside and will be absorbed at the same time. Whereas by isolating that one molecule, or
You're
that one,
missing out on the diversity and variety of the other types that,
yeah,
can really support the whole healing and reparative process.
exactly, yeah. So like, look, UC2 is cool, but I think if you can just,
UC2 is cool, but
uh,
quality bone broth is cooler.
yeah,
Just saying.
just saying,
Because we know collagen is such a obviously important piece of why we want to drink bone broth and give bone broth to pets.
yeah,
But the other constituents in bone broth that are really helpful, the amino acids, the
yeah,
proline, the glycine, those
yeah.
kinds of things, that would be essentially in the protein content
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it would all be related to it. The thing is, the reason the collagen account is important because it's like the marker
of
of
the
like
concentration
of the
and the quality.
concentration.
Yeah,
Because like, so for example,
that
like,
makes sense.
yeah, and look, you'll see it like with the gelling capacity in the
Hmm.
red meats, but it becomes harder to notice when you start talking about fish broth and you start talking about chicken broth. And look, what I'd like to see companies doing is just self-reporting, because again, if you stand by your product, just self-report.
I love it.
You know,
Yes.
like that, because again,
Maybe
every
some companies will hear this conversation and think about self-reporting. I love it.
yeah, because
Let's start a trend. And
no, but I like seriously, it's like everyone's like, oh, we care so much about pets
right.
and we love, we
I
care so
think
much
this is
about
a
high
great
quality.
discussion to get out there, because just think about the really quality bone broths. For any companies creating really quality, they're going to want to self-report to show a difference between their product and the other average product out there. So I think that's great. What is the cost behind that? Is that one of the obstacles that companies would offer as the reason they don't do it? I mean, obviously transparency is, if they don't want to be transparent with how little collagen there is in there, that's going to be one big reason. But is cost a factor, or how expensive are these measures?
So a lot of it would be to do with the batch size, right? But in reality, like most, it's the costs of testing, and that's for bacterial tests, microbial tests, and collagen levels, etc. They're like not expensive at all. Like,
Okay.
and again, like, look, per batch.
Right.
So if you were to do like, if you just think how much like something like a blood panel is, or like any test you want to think of where you take a sample of something
Mm-hmm.
and send it off, I mean, what are we talking, like a few $100s to maybe $1,000?
Right.
It's not
It's
big.
not. Yeah.
Any good company, and like and it is a big problem for, let's say, small producers. It's harsh,
Yeah.
but I mean, personally, if you can't afford a couple $100s to make sure the adequate test is done, and look, something like collagen testing, it's not something you have to do every time. You just, because you're following recipes. So you're saying, well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use X amount of pounds of bones and
Mm-hmm.
X amount of gallons of water and X amount of like apple cider vinegar. Like, you don't need to test that collagen every
Every
single
single
time you do
batch.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, it's like
Right.
an ongoing cost. Now, the bacterial tests and the microbial tests are, but like they're a lot cheaper
Yeah.
than like a full panel
Right.
analysis.
Still a minimal cost of total
Oh,
production.
like
And
100%. And anyone who's not doing it, anyone who says that we don't test because we're too small,
yeah, not a
like,
good
no,
reason.
no.
Yeah.
It's a bit like saying, well, we haven't had like hygiene tests in our restaurant because we're only a small mom and pop business. Like, no, think about that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
would you eat there?
No, and it wouldn't fly, and it wouldn't fly with, legal standards either. So
No, but that's what I mean. It's
yeah.
kind of the same thing, but
Yep.
it's kind of saying, well, we're only small, so we don't
Right.
we don't
Yep.
do any tests for
Good
anything.
analogy.
Yeah, like you wouldn't let that fly if you were like, eating dinner in like a local diner and
Mm-hmm.
say, yeah, well, we don't really follow health protocols or anything like that because it's quite expensive.
Is there a distinction, though, for the consumer to know that with the shelf-stable boxes or bags, however they're packaged, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that's available, at least for pets, in the quality pet stores and the freezers are come frozen to be thawed, obviously, before consumption. So is there one that's better or not? Or
I mean, I would say consult the brand
yeah.
because again, like the problem is it's easy for me to say that frozen ones are fine, but the problem is that like there's a lot of companies out there.
Mhm.
And I'd love to tell you that like small batch is best because it helps smaller people, but you should support brands, not categories.
And so just to clarify, it's not that a frozen bone broth that comes frozen, fresh frozen versus the shelf stable. There's no way to know right off the bat that one's better. It's not like frozen's better than shelf
No, no,
stable.
no. It
It's
makes
just the quality of the product that's in there, not how it's in the format that it's purchased is
yeah.
not a delineating factor of quality,
Yeah,
correct?
no, like the fact something's frozen,
Yeah.
that's just finishing techniques.
Okay.
I mean, you could say that like frozen, if you were to take the same quality frozen and compare it against the same quality pasteurized, maybe it's a little bit better because maybe the pasteurization process is like a little bit less good
Mhm.
for it. But like the real quality is in the actual bone broth.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's not like you look,
Minimal difference from the format that it's
yeah,
packaged in.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like so, just because it's frozen doesn't make it good.
Better. Okay. Yep. That's kind of what I
But
was after.
it's weird because I do think people have got into that mindset. I see it with like fresh,
Intuitively would seem to make sense to most people.
yeah, because I see it with fresh frozen meals, like
Mhm.
especially like the gently cooked stuff, is that people look at it and go, "Ah, frozen must be good."
Right.
But actually, what's more important is like, yeah, how's it been put together?
Okay. Good
Like,
to know.
yeah,
Because certainly shelf stable does have a lot of convenience factor to it. You know, a lot of
yeah.
people may struggle with freezer space, refrigerator space, or even just accessibility of getting it, versus
What is true with shelf stable compared to frozen is shelf stable done properly has to be done at scale.
okay.
Like, so if you are a smaller producer of bone broth, your ability to actually afford the correct machinery and processes to shelf stable your product is going to be a huge amount of money
Okay.
compared to like if you freeze it. It
Okay.
like
So
you
generally a smaller company would probably turn out a fresh frozen product.
yes,
Okay.
generally,
Good to know.
but not always.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of marketing kudos with
Right.
frozen where people go, "Oh, frozen must be good."
Mhm.
But like, I think realistically, something like bone broth, you really want it more convenient, to be honest. I think the other thing we should talk about when it comes to bone broths is like the homemade stuff.
Yes, I did wanna get to that because a lot of my clients and pet parents will make their own bone broths, and
Yeah.
there's lots of recipes out there that people can tap into for making their own bone broth, and I, quite frankly, haven't made my own. I kept considering it through the years, but have not done that, so I don't have a lot of background and knowledge on how to counsel people to, you know, walk through those steps themselves. Do you have some input on
So my issue is with people home making their own bone broth is that you really need to know what you're doing to do
Mhm.
it properly, because again, and this is something I came across like a while back, was people saying to me the problem with bone broth is the histamine level.
Yes.
Now, that is a very common side effect of homemade bone broths, not commercial made bone broths, because the histamine in bone broth comes from bacteria. Let's say you take a commercial bone broth factory, it will be aseptic. Every like the bones will have like a window where they've been like frozen or transported and put in and used, and it all has to be done within a certain window. It has to be in sterile environments. Food safety standards have to be observed. The problem is with home, is you know yourself,
Mhm.
everyone's home is different. And the reason histamine becomes a problem is because there's no kill step with bone broth. And like, if you don't, anyone who doesn't know what kill step is basically you raise the temperature to like a high level, which
Mhm.
kills off any bacteria. And but by doing that, you'll also potentially damage the quality of the bone broth during it. So the idea of bone broth is it's slow simmered like over a long period of time, 2 to 3 days.
Okay. Right.
But the problem is if you've got bacteria on the bones, that
Got it.
bacteria then turns into histamines because it
Right.
multiplies and it turns into
Okay.
histamine. And
So
so,
generally there is no kill step.
There
quote
is no
unquote.
kill step
Okay, got it.
with homemade bone
Got it.
broth, and this is why there's problems with people making homemade bone broth. So again, if you're making homemade bone broth, you need to make sure that you're using bones that have been sourced and turned around quickly and frozen and like handled in a as clean a way as possible, because the danger is that if there is like any chance of, let's say, bacteria being on it,
Mhm.
when you slow cook it, because it's, you're never going above the level that, like the heat level that kills bacteria.
Right.
What you're doing is you're multiplying that bacteria and it turns into like histamines. And so if you're giving it to a dog who has got, let's say, allergy issues,
Allergies or gut health
yeah,
issues.
then you could actually do more harm than good.
Right. And I've had a lot of clients through the years that have read about histamine, different foods that deliver more histamines to the body. And so I do have a lot of patients who have that, and dogs' allergies are a huge health issue, really across the board. And so there are a lot of pet parents that are avoiding bone broth for that reason.
Yeah,
So that's a really good
but that
comment.
doesn't happen in well-made commercially bone broth. Commercial,
Okay.
because it's made in aseptic conditions. So food hygiene safety standards, like there has to be tests done on batches afterwards to make sure the microbial content is right and make sure there's no bacteria in there and that sort of stuff. So commercially produced product, you will not get the histamine issues with.
Okay. So I always talk about how I love a fresh bone broth as opposed to a typical powdered joint supplement, but there actually are a lot of powdered bone broth
Yeah.
options out there too. What would you say to that type of product?
Again, there's nothing wrong with pound and bone broth, but it's a bit like, like the analogy I'll give is like a steak. If you were to eat a steak or you were to dehydrate a steak and then rehydrate a steak, is it really still a steak? Do you know what I mean? Because again, you lose the cell integrity
There's
generally.
still some nutritional components, but it's not the same
Exactly.
food that it
Yeah.
was
So
in its
if you,
natural state.
and don't get me wrong, like powder's convenient, it's light, it's easy
Yep.
to ship.
It's nice to have as a backup or when you're
Yeah.
traveling, but that's what I've always told my clients too, is if you can feed fresh, obviously
Yeah.
goal for fresh, but a powdered option as a backup or occasionally,
Yeah, no, it's like
still good.
it's still better than nothing, right?
Yep,
It's not. I'm not like dunking on it. I'm not saying like, yeah, powder bone broth, throw that in the bin,
right.
because like, look, it's
I
everything.
travel with my powdered bone broth so that I can, have
Yeah,
some on the road and
and look, at the end of the day, if it's more economic and you can't
mhm.
afford like a good quality liquid one, then fine. That's like
Yep.
it's still not a bad thing. But it's just like anything. You'll just, if you're buying a product which has like been fully dried, you're going to lose some of
Yep.
the benefits and cell integrity from that. And then, but
Yep,
again,
makes
like,
perfect sense. Convenience is big. And so for pet parents or consumers, the 3 things you're looking for on the label, as simple as a
yeah,
recipe as possible, is the water, the bones, and the apple cider vinegar.
yeah,
But as far as in the US, where there's no collagen concentration listed, now we understand that fish broth and even or fish bone broth, chicken or poultry bone
yeah,
broth to some extent will always be less gelatinous,
yeah.
less thick and heavy. Um, how does the consumer in the US or someone buying a bone broth in the US, how do we select from the ingredient label? Any tips?
The main thing which you got to look out for is added meats put in there. Because if there is no added meats in there, then you can go off the protein to some degree. Because like the higher the protein,
Ah, okay. So look at the
the less
protein content.
diluted it's going to be.
Yep.
But that only works if they haven't added extra
Okay.
meat in there.
That's a good distinction.
So with bone broth, it's like, try, if you can get something which is just bone broth, then you can look at the protein levels and then you can actually then do more of a comparison.
This conversation will also elucidate for people that the higher price of something that may have a more collagen content is going to be worth the cost. As so we're always cost and convenience are the 2 things that, really drives people to purchase something or, select something. So I think this is a great conversation for people to understand the functional value of the food that they're purchasing.
Yeah. And look, I think it's like one of those things that you instinctively know is that if you have like a big carton of something compared to a small carton of something and it's for therapeutic means, it doesn't mean the big carton is better.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, I think you instinctively know a lot of these things, that like people understand fillers and like water is a filler in this situation, to be honest, because water's pretty cheap. And
Right.
do you know what I mean? And I can just like, and
We
like,
could add our own water.
because I've had that conversation with people before where like you've got a therapeutic grade bone broth and you're
Mhm.
comparing it against something which isn't. And people say, "Oh, this is it's a bit expensive." And I go, "Yeah,
Mhm.
just add 4 liters of water to it, and you got the same product,
Right.
and you've made 3 times as much." But again, it depends what you want. If you want it as like a flavor topper, there's a market for that. Do you know? And there are a lot of brands in America that I would consider to be flavor
Flavor
toppers.
toppers. Wow.
And that's
Yep.
but that's the reality. I'm like, that's not me being a
Pessimist.
no, but no, but like people understand this argument with dog food.
Mhm.
They understand it. They go, oh well, this has got like 4% meat, and the rest is like corn and fillers and God knows what else.
Mhm.
And they understand that argument that if you buy something like let's say just in the kibble market, a cheap kibble versus a good kibble, it's still kibble. It's still like a little pellet you feed your dog on, right? But
Right.
they understand that like one you're going to
Yep.
spend a lot more money on. But bone broth, for whatever reason, they just think,
Lump it all in as
yeah, bone
same
broth is bone
quality.
broth,
Yep.
yeah.
That's good analogy.
So,
So,
so yeah. So hopefully I've upset everyone
yeah,
by already. To be
I
fair,
think it will. It's enlightened me a lot too. So, love that we had this conversation. It will make me much more equipped to support pet parents in making choices that are good for their pets.
awesome.
Awesome.